Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. In today's video we're going to talk about how we believe Creative Assembly can vastly improve onto the DLC system implemented in the Total War Warhammer series. This is more in reference for the future for Total War Warhammer 3, as we are fully aware that there's not much DLC left for Total War Warhammer 2, so without further ado, let's begin. Before we actually begin, I just want to apologise for the short videos lately. We're working on a really special project that I believe should be out next week. I can't say exactly what it is yet, because there's another party involved, but it's going to be really cool and I'm sure that you guys are going to love it. Let's not waste any time now and let's jump in today's video. It's obviously no secret that the Total War Warhammer series has received a lot of DLC. And it can be expected when Total War Warhammer 3 releases the last game of the series, there'll be a lot more DLC to come. Now DLC so far has been great, with the DLC released in the second game of the series being much better than the first. Obviously there are no complaints in regards to race packs, they've been implemented very well, especially with the 4 unique legendary lords and the almost complete army. But it is the DLC lord packs that I feel deserve a bit more love. Now their implementation of legendary characters, lords, heroes and any units has been so far very well. But it's more the campaign aspect which is lacking. Too many characters introduced into the Total War Warhammer series are doing the exact same thing in terms of campaign. This has been something that has been highlighted through various forums and I'm very much inclined to agree. Obviously this wasn't an issue in Total War Warhammer 1 where there was no set campaign narrative, so anything that was introduced had the full sandbox experience. But in Total War Warhammer 2 we had the Eye of the Vortex campaign, which was a narrative campaign. For those who have not played the Eye of the Vortex campaign, I'll cover it in brief. The Eye of the Vortex campaign for the core game races of Warhammer 2, those being the High Elves, the Dark Elves, the Skaven and the Lizardmen, must compete for control over the Great Vortex. Most of the legendary lords implemented for the core game races, even those implemented long after in the form of DLC, have the same campaign objectives, which unfortunately became quite boring. I'm not trying to fault the Vortex campaign itself, I personally did quite enjoy it, but the big problem there was almost every single legendary lord implemented for the same races had the same objective. It felt rather uninspired, especially when you got into the lore of some of the characters, where it wouldn't make sense lore-wise for a lot of these characters to actually try and actively seek the Vortex. Yes, some of them would, but others would obviously have different plans. Now obviously we have to take into account that lore doesn't really matter here. First off, the Total War games are sandbox, and secondly, it can be considered that the Total War Warhammer universe is its own timeline. But if there's going to be a narrative aspect, almost everyone having the same campaign is extremely boring. Even if the new legendary lords bring in new units, new mechanics and so on, it's still the same endgame and that's quite boring. Obviously, in the later lifespan of Total War Warhammer 2, which is where we are now, there have been some DLCs, for example the Warden and the Paunch, where Eltharion the Grim, a base race game character for Total War Warhammer 2, does have his own specific storyline. The same can also be said about the Shadow and the Blade, which features the Skaven and the Dark Elves. This has been the better format, and it should be the only format for Total War Warhammer 3. We are aware that Total War Warhammer 3 will have 2 campaigns. At launch there will be a narrative campaign, presumably focusing around the 4 base game races, and then a few months down the line we'll get that whole big mega campaign. I think they call it a very big map. But if it's the case that we're going to get another narrative campaign, it would be a massive shame if every single legendary lord, or a majority of them from each of the base game races, had the same objectives. Honestly, were it up to me, I'd say that each base game race should have its own objectives completely different to each other, maybe tied in some sort of way, but not completely carbon copy it in every single faction and race. And then when other DLC lord packs start coming out, they could start focusing on different campaign aspects, giving a new narrative. Obviously we're not aware what the main campaign story is, but we can be more or less sure what races are coming in. The Demons of Chaos, the Ogre Kingdoms, the Chaos Dwarves, and Kislev seem to be the most likely choices here. All of them are quite drastically different, and yes, they could probably be tied into one campaign with their starting 2 legendary lords, if that's the case that we get this once again. But for any future DLC, they should focus around bringing in new different campaign aspects, especially because there's so much potential here. Not every single Demon of Chaos, even those spawned by the same god, will have the same goal. And obviously, if it's the case that we have one Chaos Undivided faction for all the Demons of Chaos, the 4 Chaos gods and their servants are so drastically different that unless the campaign was set in the end times itself, it would be really hard to imagine them having the exact same goal. The same could be said in respect to the Chaos Dwarfs. that not every single Chaos Dwarf will have the same goal. Some of them would want to focus around slavery, whilst others would probably want to focus about finding artifacts. It really depends on who you bring in from the lore. Obviously, I understand that this is most likely a lot more work for Creative Assembly, but having Legendary Lords doing the exact same thing is probably why so many people don't really like the Eye of the Vortex campaign so much. Now, obviously, it's also the fact that it's a race mechanic, but I quite liked it, to be honest. I thought it was very well implemented. The only problem is that I played it once and then never again, because at the end of the day, the other Legendary Lords had the same objectives, and it was kind of boring to do that once again. At that point, it's just easier to go to the Mortal Empires and have a pure sandbox experience. But what do you guys think about this idea in regards to Total War Warhammer 3 DLC Lord packs, each having their own unique story and not following the main campaign? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm rather curious to see what you think, because this is something a bit different, especially when it comes to a narrative. I know some people are all for it and some people really just don't like it, but it seems like it's going to be another theme in the third and final game of the series. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various different links to social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord, where you can get in contact with the Great Book team. Also in the description section below is an affiliate link with Element Games, where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using our special link and also using our special code, both of which are in the description below, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. Honestly, it's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A special thank you to our patrons Gibraltar LUSC and Ryan Bertsche for subscribing to us at our Fane level. Honestly, you guys are super cool. And a big thank you to our patron Edward Yule for subscribing to us at our King level. Mate, you're super awesome. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.